Welcome to Firm and Final, everybody. I'm your host, Mabe Koja, and this is a show about the leaders, past and present, in the stop-loss, self-funding, and reinsurance industry. And today, my guest is Dale Sagen. So, Dale, thanks and welcome to the show.
Happy to be here, Mabe. Thank you.
I think we met for the very first time at Saya. You're one of the fellow people on LinkedIn that's trying to get messages out there. And so from that perspective, you're one of the people that I admire on LinkedIn.
Thank you very much for that. I admire you. I know you've put a lot of posts out there, written a lot of white pages that I've reviewed. Ultimately, we did have the chance to meet. I think it just shows the power of LinkedIn and building a community of folks that can easily connect with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you tell the audience where you work today and what is it that your role is?
I'll start off by saying I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. I work for QBE Accident and Health. I am a business development leader focused on captive insurance. So bringing captive insurance vehicles to our clients and prospects.
So how did you end up in this role?
Great question. I fell in love with captive insurance probably about 5 years ago and have been working towards understanding captives, understanding the uses, not only for medical stop loss, but other areas. And along the way, I built a great relationship with QBE through underwriting exercises for various programs. And when I had an opportunity to join, a diverse group of individuals with a really strong background in captives, reinsurance, the global strength of QBE, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, very cool. And we're going to explore this space of captives in some depth today, because I think it's like one of the hottest areas in our space in stop loss and self-funding. But maybe give everybody a little bit of background. How did you end up in the stop loss self-funded reinsurance environment?
I'll give you this full story here. So I actually in college had an internship with State Farm. And I was selling home and auto insurance in 2008. It was my internship, turned into the beginning of my career. Had a terrible go at it. I think 1 month I made $500 and it just was not working for me. And I actually have an aunt, Kelly Filardo, who was working for a third-party administrator in Cleveland, Ohio, and explained to me self-funding and paying claims instead of paying premium. And I just thought that was revolutionary. So I took an opportunity to join as sales support and really learn the gears of self-funded health plans, stop-loss carriers, PBMs, the ERISA contracts, all the things that really make self-funding work. I was able to start the ground floor there and over time work my way through this industry to learn as much as I can to provide as much value as I can.
Absolutely. And what drew you to the captive industry? Because honestly, this is a space that's exploding right now. And it seems to be that everybody is asking about how do I get into a captive type of vehicle? Maybe just start off by explaining what a captive vehicle is.
Captive insurance, it's a small regulated insurance entity. And you have a regulator, it's audited, you have actuaries reviewing it, you find the lines of risk that you feel comfortable retaining a portion of that risk in your insurance company. And for me, this was maybe about 10, 12 years ago. I was working at a consulting firm and they had a captive program up and running. And I was a data analyst and my job was to review the claims, review what was going in and going out of the program. And I just saw that this program was providing a lot of reduced costs compared to other benchmarks that we had. And, if you look at the idea of if I give you an insurance company, a captive insurance company, now you care about that catastrophic risk. Now you're going to find solutions. And, the cherry on top is that at the end of the year, if the captive still has underwriting profits, return back to the members. So for me, it just seemed like a very efficient vehicle of managing stop loss. And at that point, I had to learn more. I then went to become an account executive. And I had a book of 17 clients. And all of them were complaining about leverage trend. They said this is bogus, that our renewals are always 15% and we get it down to single digits. And I had an idea, and the idea was that I would be able to take all of my clients, bundle it into a group captive, so I have one renewal. I have one underwriter. I have one set of renewal regulations that I can meld some of that ongoing risk amongst.
Mhm.
And I thought that that was just the bee's knees. And maybe, to be honest with you, I couldn't get it going. But at that point, I decided I need to figure out what captive insurance is. And here I am.
That's very cool. And it sounds like you really enjoy working in this industry. Tell me like one of the nice things about the industry that you really enjoy.
For me, I just love the complexity of it. It's a giant puzzle, and there's individuals that bring a lot of experience on one part of this puzzle. Either they know pharmacy benefit managers like the back of their hand, or they are the best when it comes to solving for compliance or data analytics. Like everybody has their niche, and it's this amazingly beautiful puzzle when you see an advisor that can really fully integrate all of these great risk management strategies into their clients, because that's ultimately what you're trying to support.
Yes.
And I find it to be almost like one of those artificial intelligent images where you can keep zooming in and zooming in and zooming in. I think that's what this industry looks like to me, and that's why I'm so fascinated by it.
And so every day is not fascinating, right? So what's something about the industry that maybe you don't particularly like?
The exact same coin, just the other side of it. It can put a lot of pressure on the advisors and the employers and the ultimate payers of healthcare to find the best solutions. And now you're getting to a point where you're seeing a lot of lawsuits, fiduciary, I would say nuclear verdicts are coming down, in
Yeah.
which it's just so difficult for an average employee benefit professional to manage a book of business these days. So it's a career that pays very well, but burnout and boredom, I think, can creep in fast. And it's hard to keep individuals engaged in finding the right avenue for their clients.
Sure. I do think it's a fruitful career path. And I'm just curious, what role did mentorship play for you in getting you to where you are today?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to my mentor since the beginning of my career at the third party administrator, Jeff Kanzer. He's at Berkeley Accident and Health now, but he put me under his wing and taught me stop loss, taught me self-funding. He's local here in the Cleveland area as well, so we have a great relationship. We still get together often, but he was one of the first ones to also share with me captive insurance. And it's an area where you look towards people that want to give and give their time and give their attention to somebody new in this industry. And he was a perfect mentor for me.
Very cool. So Dale, I mentioned when we started the conversation that we're both on LinkedIn. We're both pretty active on LinkedIn. I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about the role of social media and what that does for professional branding. How important do you think that is in our career today in 2024?
I think it's one of the most underutilized platforms that a professional can have in their wheelhouse. And I say this because for me, maybe 10 years ago, I would put something on LinkedIn and friends would make fun of me, right? It was just, oh, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And this is maybe 2 years ago. I started to get to the point where I wanted to share a little bit more and put things on LinkedIn that I felt like I wanted to get the message across that I am here. I am present. I'm here to help you. Let me share some knowledge on self-funding or captive, stop loss, really my wheelhouse. And it took years, 2 years. Now I'm at a point where I feel confident that I could put something on LinkedIn and at least one person's going to like it, right? But it does take a tribe, to be honest with you. And I'll give another shout out. I have a sales coach. His name is Ryan Miller.
Okay.
And he really empowered me to, put myself out there, be vulnerable. And I try my best to keep it as professional as possible and focus on the mission of self-funding, stop loss captives. But, do something personal and, let people get to know you. And the idea is if you find me on LinkedIn, you get to know me through some videos or some content. Maybe you like me, maybe you want to do some business with me, and then we can work on opportunities together. So
absolutely,
LinkedIn makes that very easy for you to accomplish in a sales role.
How did you get to that point? Was there an inspiration or something like that that took you down this path of getting the confidence to make content on LinkedIn?
I'll share my dirty secret, Mabe. I'm a Toastmaster. I'm a distinguished Toastmaster, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was in Toastmasters. I'm still in Toastmasters for 10 plus years. And I finally tuned the communication strategy to remove ums and ahs and just be direct. And it's to a fault, to be honest with you, but I practice it as often as I can. And when I thought about these videos, there's some videos that take me an hour to record, just 2 minutes, but you're just trying to just sharpen the message as much as possible. But I'm also very efficient in just throwing a quick video up there that could take 5 minutes. And I think just that efficiency, using Toastmasters as, the base for me to focus my craft, it really makes it easy. So I would suggest Toastmasters, LinkedIn content definitely goes hand in hand.
Man, I think I could benefit from that because I'm full of the ums and the ahs. It's always been part of the way I speak, and it doesn't really change whether I'm doing this, recording a podcast, or if I'm even giving a presentation in front of the board. That's just always been a hard thing for me to overcome. Maybe I need to take some Toastmaster classes.
I would love to have you as a guest, Mabe.
Okay, I'm going to take you up on that. So, thinking about our industry, I can't help but think the industry has changed a lot in the past 5 years, but it's probably going to change a hell of a lot more in the next 5 years. What's something that you see being very different in the stop-loss reinsurance self-funded space in the next 5 years?
I think you're going to see more of an emphasis on risk management and not necessarily just placing a client with a fully insured bundled solution, finding ways to impact a dialysis claim, finding ways to impact an individual that's going through behavioral health that could sometimes top $1 million. If you can find a solution to help them with that, I think that's going to help the smaller employers, middle market employers. But in order to get them into the self-funded space, a lot of times it's captive insurance is the reason why they're able to finally have stop loss that makes it more attainable to have a self-funded health plan. I think my bold prediction is that in the next 5 years, you're going to see a lot of advisors, consultants that have their value brand on their shelves. And they have the ability to really retain costs, negotiating with hospitals directly, finding that PBM that's going to find a different source for a high-cost specialty drug. If you think about it, if you have that value brand on your shelves, now you have the ability to really help your client if they want to reduce that cost. If that's mission number one, you'd have this thing in your back pocket that's branded for you and ultimately provide a lot of value. That's
very cool. What about in terms of existential risks to our industry? What do you see coming down the pike that's something that we should all be worried about that could really impact the way we do business?
Yeah, there's so many things I could say here. Number one, I would say, is the cell and gene therapy, which I think, you're a leader on, of course, and there's a lot of individuals trying to solve for that. But I would say that could potentially cause a lot of anxiety in our industry. Number two, I'm going to say, I mentioned this before, the nuclear verdicts on the fiduciary claims and ultimately causing some E&O risk to creep up for a lot of consultants. That's something that I think isn't going to go away. And I'll also say I really feel like there's something to be said for a lot of these captive programs. I'm not going to name names or anything, but for me, the captive insurance market is such a clean market. It's such a great way to manage that risk premium more efficiently, gain some leverage. And I would say there's a lot of advisors that know of a captive and that's their captive program. But, if you start to see some of the bubbles regarding some captive programs and you talk to some individuals, you really have to know the details of the contracts. You have to know exactly what's happening. It's very difficult. So for me, it's something where I think captive insurance is going to potentially be a risk, but I'm trying to make it a positive.
Very good. All right, we're going to change the tone here a little bit. I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire questions, if that's okay.
Love it.
All right. So give me 3 words that best describe a career in stop-loss reinsurance and self-funding.
I would say stable, And that's pretty true with any insurance career, to be honest with you. At least 2024, the early 2024, we're stable still. But at
Yeah.
the same time, historically, it's been recession proof. So I think stability, I would say pivotable. And for me, in my career, starting off as sales support, moving into data analytics, moving into account work, then moving into sales, you're able to find a path that better suits your skill set.
Sure.
And last thing I would say is in demand. There's a
Mm.
lot of individuals looking for talent. You see the average age of our professionals in the reinsurance stop loss markets. It's creeping up there. And if you want to find a career that is in demand for your skill set, your relationships, your
Hmm.
ultimately things that you bring to the table in your career, this is definitely a career for you.
All right. Who did you root for in the Super Bowl?
San Francisco.
So you're disappointed with the outcome.
I'm not disappointed. I like an underdog story. I like Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy. I thought that was pretty cool, but I think we just witnessed the beginning of a new dynasty here. I think Patrick Mahomes may be the next Michael Jordan, and I think it's cool.
All right. Where can we find the personal Dale? Are you most likely to be on TikTok, Snapchat, or Instagram?
Great question. So actually in 2020, I got rid of all Facebook, Instagram, all of that jazz. Got to the point where I just said, if I remove this from my life, maybe I would actually build deeper relationships with my friends. And to be honest with you, it's been great. Just,
Yeah.
I'd rather, send a text. I'd rather get to know you a little bit better than just seeing your life kind of slowly go through my feed. I'd rather, reconnect. And it's been a great thing for me.
Okay, very cool. To a new entrant in our industry, and for somebody getting their very first job, would you send them down the direct carrier, kind of traditional carrier path? Would you advise them to go through like the broker consultant path? Or would you advise them to go through like the next generation solutions, captives, RBP, point solutions? Where would you send somebody new in our career?
Can I throw a fourth one on there?
Sure.
I honestly could not be more thankful for starting my career off at an independent third-party administrator. And
Okay.
it doesn't have to be independent, but ultimately the center spoke for an employer's health plan where
Yeah.
the claims are being paid, searching for stop loss contracts that are more valuable, helping the advisors with compliance, helping the advisors through technology, reporting. I feel like that really helped me gain a better understanding of this market. And then when I went to the consultant side, I would say at that point, I had a great idea of where everything was and ultimately was able to press on some soft areas that I knew I could press on because I knew self-funding and stop loss when most were just selling the commercial carriers.
That's a good response. What about if you could do it all over again and have a completely different career? Where would you have liked to have ended up if you weren't in the insurance industry?
Well, I'll tell you, I can't complain about my career at all. But when I went to college, right out of high school, I wanted to be an accountant. I was really good with numbers. Financial accounting made sense to me, and I loved the puzzle. And in college, I ended up being sold on a sales and marketing degree. And like I said, no complaints at all.
Yeah.
But I often do wonder if I would have followed that path as an accountant, where would I be? And maybe I would have actually ended up on this side of the business just from a different role.
What's your take on working from home? A lot of individuals that are coming into careers out of college today want work from home jobs. What's your take on that?
I think you need flexibility in a career. I think that's important, but I'll also share with you that there is something to be said for in-person collaboration.
Sure.
And when you're early in your career, I would highly suggest individuals to find something that's local that you can go to every single day as often as you can to learn from individuals that quite honestly, would gladly share their experiences, would gladly help you with your career, would easily answer questions at the water cooler. If you're new in this, I would highly suggest doing the best you can to work 5 days a week in an office. And over time, as you need that flexibility, it'll come, it'll be there. Companies like QBE offers really flexible schedules. I really think that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, I think it's hard to disagree with your take. I think, that in-person interaction early in your career just sets you up to be able to do a lot of different things when you do need that flexibility to be working from home. So that's very good. And why don't we turn it around now, Dale? I'll give you a chance to ask me a question and we'll make you the interviewer.
Awesome. So I'm shocked that artificial intelligence only came up once on this so far.
Yeah.
And for me, I use ChatGPT every once in a while just to ask some questions, help me a little bit with a thought if I'm having a little brain fog. And I see it really disrupting a lot of industries out there. And from a underwriting, actuary, and quite honestly, even sales, I'd like for you to discuss just where do you see artificial intelligence impacting this over the next 5 to 10 years?
It's a really good question, Dale. I think artificial intelligence has the ability to really impact the underwriting process. Specifically in stop loss and in reinsurance, it's pretty clunky. And we have multiple data sources. We have a lot of eligibility that needs to be reviewed. We have data coming at us from different places. And I think because of that, we have a lot of hands that touch data. But data is meant to be analyzed by a computer before it comes to us so that we could spend our time in deep thinking and deep analysis as opposed to being the individuals that do the manipulating of the data. So I definitely think that there's an opportunity to make an underwriter's life easier. See, now the problem is when you start talking about AI, people all of a sudden start thinking, I'm going to lose my job. And because of that, they start kind of putting up their dukes, right? I'm not going to adopt AI because it's going to mean that I'm going to lose my job. But I would take it from a different vantage point and say, how can it make my job more efficient, right? You just said you use ChatGPT to help you. At the end of the day, it makes your life a little bit easier and opens up more time for you. We need to spend that time in deep thinking, deep analysis, and we many times can't do that because we don't have the time. So I look at AI as a way to reduce the time that I'm spending on other tasks that allows me to spend more deep thinking time.
I absolutely agree with you. I'll share this too. There's a case study in which a long time ago, you'd play chess one-on-one and there would be a champion. And then eventually they introduced Watson, and Watson ended up just dominating all the humans, right, in chess. And over time, they started to allow humans to use Watson, and then they dominated the computer, right? So there is something to be said for allowing humans to be creative and using the technology to make them more efficient.
Absolutely. So, Dale, why don't we close it up with one last question for you. For somebody who's getting newly started in the stop-loss, self-funded, or reinsurance industry, what's one piece of advice you could give them?
One piece of advice, I already mentioned it before, is Toastmasters. Being able to communicate, being able to present, being able to take criticism, constructive criticism, of course.
Sure.
There's a lot of things that you can learn through a Toastmasters club, and I find it to be my passion, and I'm happy to continue and share that knowledge with individuals if anybody's interested.
Awesome, Dale. Thanks for joining us for this conversation today. I'm sure I'll see you at the next industry conference, but before then, I'm sure I'll see you online too.
Thank you, man.
All right. Take care, Dale.